Hello guys, welcome back. So in this video, we are going to redesign logos using Canvas API in Android Studio. So I'll do my best to explain things in a simple way. As you can see here, we are going to recreate this by using the Canvas API and create a Squid Game card. And also we are going to redesign this YouTube icon here and also creating the Instagram icon. So without further ado, let's get started. So Canvas API help us to precisely control what is drawn in a screen. So creating custom UI element like patterns and other graphs and other things, we can use this Canvas API, and it's really just simple. So the Compose Canvas uses the view group canvas but performs a lot of boilerplate code for us, so it's much easier to work with. So let me show you here an example using an Instagram icon. Now let's create here a composable which we are going to call this Instagram icon. So now let's create here a room so that we can try and use this. So the first thing which we want to use here is the colors, which we are going to use them. So let's call this Insta color. And this one is going to be a list of colors because we are going to use a gradient here. So we have here yellow, red, and magenta color, so that we can use them inside here. So now let's create here a canvas. This canvas requires us to pass in here the modifier and also to use this onDraw function, which we are going to specify all of the parameters which we want to draw. So we have to provide this modifier, and by default there is no any modifier which is going to be provided, so that we can define different things, for example sizes and the padding and other things which we have to do. So for our case here, we are going to pass in here the modifier, and this modifier we are going to pass in here a padding of 16 dp, so that it is not going to start from the beginning there. And also we want to create a size, so an icon is not going to have a bigger size, so we are importing here all of these units, and we are going to have a size of 100 dp, and we are going to make this inside the lambda function so that we can use them. So in order to place items and other things inside the canvas, we have to use a way which you can understand it. For example, locating these things, and the Android uses the Cartesian coordinate system, which means we are going to use the values the x and y, and it's just different from this normal Cartesian system. So I have prepared a simple diagram which is going to illustrate how you can try and use this Cartesian system. So let's jump there and see how we can use it. So now here is the diagram. As you can see here, we have plotted points, and we have here 0 and here we have 100, and this Cartesian system is being flipped to the Android perspective. I don't know why they did this, or they wanted to confuse us, but I know there is a good reason why they used this system. So in normal Cartesian system, the coordinates are starting here, the 0 from 0, they're going to start from this point, for example, going here. But by default in Android, the 0, 0, they're going to start at the top left edge. And as you can see here now, moving from this point here going to this point here, the x-axis is going to increase. So moving from left to right, the x-axis is going to increase, and moving here from this point here downward to this point here, the y-axis is going to increase. So, and moving from here to this point here, the x-axis is going to decrease, and the same when we move from this point going to this point here, the y-axis is going to decrease. So as you can see here now, it is being divided in different ways, and here I have located the center, which is going to be, and we can easily access by using methods which we can get the center of the canvas and use it to draw our icons. So understanding this one is going to be key in your development, so that you cannot get confused and plot points outside the way which you didn't want. So now let's jump inside Android Studio and continue finishing our Instagram icon. Now, in order to draw the icon, there are several methods which we can easily access here inside the canvas. So for that case, we are going to use a method which is called draw rounded rectangle. So this draw rounded rectangle is going to take up several parameters which you can try and customize them. So the first thing is going to take up the brush. We can provide the linear brush gradients, and here we can pass in the colors, which is going to be the Insta colors. And also we have to provide the corner radius, and this one is going to give us the radius of this thing. So we are going to use here corner Now after that, we have to provide the size of this canvas, and because we have specified there, we're going to use the actual canvas size, and there is a padding, so it's going to decrease in size here. So we are going to use this canvas size. Also, we have to provide the style. So we want, by default, this rounded rectangle is going to use a filled style, but for our case, we want it to be stroked, and for this case, we can use a parameter which is called the style, and for here we can provide the stroke. So now we have created here our background. So we want to create another item which is going to be centered inside here, and this one is that cycle inside the Instagram icon. So for this case, we can use another function which is called draw cycle. Now we have to provide the radius of this cycle, and this radius here we are going to specify 45f, and by default they are going to have several parameters. If you press here Ctrl Q, you can see we have the brush, we have radius, and this one center is going to provide offset. So if we want to move it from one point to another point, but by default they are going to be offsetted at the center, and we want our first cycle to be centered inside the canvas. And also there are different ways, for example here styles and other things which you can try to pass in. So for our case also, we want to pass in the style. So this one is going to be situated at the center. Now we want to draw another cycle which is going to be above these other cycles situated near the far corner of the canvas. Now we can duplicate this by pressing Ctrl D, because we are going to use this the same. And here by default, because it's going to be filled, this cycle, dotted cycle, so we want it to be filled, and by default the style is going to use the filled style, so we can just remove this. But we are going to add another function here which is called center, and this center here we want to offset the center, so we can pass in here the offset function. And now we want to offset this from one position to another, so we are going to use the canvas width. So we want to move this by 80% so that it can be moved from one point to another. So also we can use here the canvas height. So we want to move this by 20%, so we are going to use 20f. Now our Instagram icon is going to be ready, and as you can see here, it's just really simple. We have used just 3 functions in order to obtain this icon. So let's preview here so that if our icon is really correct. So our icon is ready, but we have forgotten here to provide this with a certain width. So we have not provided the size of this cycle here. So let's also provide a size. So we give it a radius. Sorry, because we have copied there and I have forgotten to change this. Let's give it a 13 radius here so that it can have a smaller size. Now let's preview also here. Now our icon is finished, and as you can see here, it's just really good, and you can just use this simple function and create a good looking logo. Now let's create a YouTube icon. For now, let's collapse this. Okay, now let's collapse this also and create here some room so that we can work with. Now let's create here another composable, and then we are going to call this YouTube. And here we have to change the size because we want the canvas to, because the YouTube icon is not centered, or it's not just equal in size, so the width is more, it's more than the height. So we are going to make this 200 dp, and also we are going to make the height to be 100 dp. So now after we create this canvas here, now we can create the variables which we are going to use them. So we are going to create here x. Okay, now we want to draw the background, and the background of YouTube icon is having a rounded rectangle. So as we have seen with Instagram icon, we use the rounded rectangle. So we are going also to draw here. So we draw this rounded rectangle. But now here, instead of providing a brush, we're going to provide a color. And for our case here, we want to provide red color because YouTube is using red. And we can specify the size and the width to be X and the height to be Y, which we have defined above there. Now also we have to provide the corner radius. And for our case here, we want to have a radius of 40. So we are going to provide here 40F and 40F. Now for our case here, we want to draw a triangle. And for this case, we don't have a function that is going to draw a triangle. So we have to apply our own way. And there is a way which we can use to draw any particular path which you want or any particular drawing. And for this purpose, we are going to use a path. So we can call this path function here in order to create our path or our triangle. And we can use apply here in order to not be calling here path dot end. So we can just access the method inside this path class easily. Now there is several parameters which you can use to pass in here or functions. The first one is move to. So this parameter here or function move to is going to start a new subpath at a given coordinate, and this acts like a pen. So if we place a pen, for example, at a particular location, it's going to start from there and then it's going to draw to other locations. So if we provide here coordinates, so the cursor is going to go to that point and start drawing from that point. Now for our case here, we want to start from the x-axis because the YouTube icon has a triangle that is facing here to the y-axis. Now for this case, we want first to be at the center of x, and here in y we want to move from this position, we go upward. So we want to remove this to 40 because we are going to the upper position. And for this case now we have to minus this, and because the coordinate system acts like that, if we have this, for example here, this is the corner of our screen, we have here 0, 0, and the center maybe will be here. So in order to move from this position here to go to this position here, we have to decrease y value. And for this case now we are minusing here with 40 so that we can start to an upper position. Now we want to draw to this position here and also draw to this position here. Now we have to use another function here which is called line 2, and here now we can provide, for example, we want to start from the center of x and also provide a center of y. And now we want to move to another position. So because we are moving from this position to this position, we have to add the y value. So we are going to add the same value which we have added here. We are going to add 40. So we have decreased here 40 and here we have added 40 so that we can create that slope. And also now we want also to move to another line, and this line is going to come from this point and then it's going to another point. So now we need to offset this value so that it can go to the left value, and here we are going to offset this by 80 values. So when we build this, you are going to see it really good. And then we have to close here our path, and after closing this path here, now we can call here draw path, and then now we can pass in here our path, and also we can provide here color. And for our case here, we want this to be white colored. Now as you can see here, this takes several parameters here, the path, color, the opacity. Also we can specify different styles. For example, if we want a stroked, color filter, and blend mode, and other parameters which you can use them to customize to your need. Now for our case here, we have already drawn this path. Now let's come down here and create a preview function. Now let's reload here and see how is the output. So now our output is ready. Let's just come here to this design here. As you can see here, now we have the YouTube icon. And as you have seen that when we are drawing, we started from this point here, and then we drawn from to this point and also drawn to this point. And when we call the close, it drawn automatically to close to this anchor point here. So this is just the way which we used it. Now you can play with these values here to get your desired values or your desired icon which you want. Now for our case here, we want also to create a Squid Game card. And for this case here, now we have to create another composable. And we are going to call this Squid Game. Now, before I start to write the code, I want to show you a graphical illustration so that you can understand what we are going to do here. So now, as you can see here, I have designed this inside the program, and you can see here we have these edges here, and we want to draw this cycle here, and we have to offset this value to this position here, and also this one is going to be drawn here at the center, the triangle, and also we have to offset this value here to this position here when we are going to draw this rectangle. Now we have these values of the X and Y, so let's jump into the code and see how we can achieve this. Now let's create here a color which we are going to use it, and I have sampled this color from the image, so you can try and copy this value here in order to obtain the same color, or you can use any color which you wish. Now let's create here a canvas as usual, which we are going to provide here the modifier. Now let's obtain here our values. So we are going to obtain the X here, and then this one is going to be size.width. Now, what we're required to do here, now we have to draw the background. And in order to do that, we have to create a rectangle. And for this case, as you have seen, we have been using a rounded rectangle, but there is a built-in function which you can try and use and create a rectangle with sharp edges. And this one is just draw rec. So as you have seen here, now we can provide the rectangle, and this can take in brush and several parameters. So for our case here, we're going to provide the color, and this one is going to take up the color which we have defined up there. And now we can provide also the size. X, Y. Now what we have to do is to draw the cycle which is going to be offsetted from the center to going to the left edge. And now to do that, let's create here and let's draw here a cycle. And now we can provide here a radius, and we want this one to have the size because the radius is going to define the size. So we are going to use the center of this, so the value of the center X, and this one is just basically the width, and then we want to divide this by 6 so that we can get just a smallest shape. So you can go with any values, but I prefer to go with 6. Now also we can provide here a style. Because we want to use a stroke, so we are going to provide a style of 15. And also we can have here a color which is going to be black. And also we have now to offset the center, and in order to do that we have to use this offset function, and now we can try to offset this and move it to another position. So we can use the center, and then we are going to minus this with 120 values so that it can go back to this to the left edge. And here now we just going to use the center.y because we are going to have the same position as at the center. Now we have finished to draw here our cycle. Now we have to draw a triangle which is going to face upward, and for this case here now we have to create a path. And because we don't have a function which is going to act as the triangle, so we have to use path in order to draw that. Now also here we have to specify the move to, or the place where our pen is going to start to draw. And for our case here, we want to start at the center, and also we want to move here from the Y value and we're going to offset this by 40 values. Now we have to draw the line in order to create here our values. So we are going to use the center, and we are going to plus this by 40 so that we can move to another position. And also here we are going to use center, and then we are going also to add here 40 values so that we can achieve that position, which is going to be our edge or our angle there. Now we have to create here another line which is going to go to another position, and this one is going to be, and here we have to minus with 40 because we are going to go to the opposite coordinates, so we have to minus this. And also here now we have to use the same values because we are going to go from one point to another point. So here, and then we are going to have here 40. Now as you have seen here, because the triangle is going to be in a shape of this way, so we want to move from this point here coming to this point here, and because this point here, the y values are going to be similar from this point to this point, but the x values are going to be just in a negative way. So that's why here we are adding and here we are minusing, and here we have the same values, which is going to be the same axis. Now we have also to close here, we should not forget here to close our path. Now after finishing that, we have to call draw path. Now after finish here, we have to create our rectangle, and we're going to draw a rectangle. And after that, we have to offset this one. So we are going to obtain here a value which is going to be top left. And now in order to offset this one, and then it's going to offset the edges. So it's going to start from this edge here to offset this. Now we can use the center. And now we can plus this with 90. And also we have to offset the values of y. So we are going to offset here the center, and then we want to offset this by 50. So we want to achieve similarly to here, but we want to offset this one to the negative values because we want to go upward, and this one because it's going to offset the top left corner. So if we offset this value here, it's going to come to this position, for example. So we want to offset this back, and for that case we are going to minus with 50 here. Now we can provide the size. Now we have finished it here to create our Squid Game card. Now let's try and call here preview function and see the output. So now let's create here a preview function. Now let's try and rebuild here and see the output. Now let's come here to this design tab here in order to see it well. Now as you have seen here, now we have this Squid Game card which we have drawn ourselves using the Canvas API. So guys, let's leave it here. If you find value out of this video, give it a like and don't forget to subscribe to learn more stuff like this. See you in the next video. Bye bye for now.